And I'm still with you. You know, an idea occurred. We are done with the presentations. We are done with the plenary session, so to say. And an idea occurred that the questions that we keep hearing during the offline discussions or the service desk, maybe we wanted, it would be better if we gave a couple of public comments, because, I mean, some of the questions, since they repeat themselves, they are very popular. It means that many people would appreciate hearing an answer to these questions. So I will ask my colleagues now to come to the stage and tell us what were the frequently asked questions? What are people concerned with from what you heard during the offline discussions? Is there anything else that you wanted to make public? Chris, will you be the first?
Thank you, Max. Do something with that. Okay, so I wanted to, I guess, start at quite high level here. And initially say thank you all for coming. I think we've been really pleased to see so many members, so many members of the community, but also RIPE NCC members represented here today, and to hear from so many of you. If I'm absolutely honest, I think a lot of the questions that we did hear, we came in expecting somewhat. We are certainly aware of the discussions that are going on in the Russian community, and my colleagues Max and Alex obviously follow that closely and speak to myself and to other members of the RIPE NCC management. So we hear what's going on there. And I think the questions that we heard, that I heard on the microphone here, and also speaking to some of you, and I know my colleagues spoke to many more of you in the discussion, really reinforced that there are concerns from this community arising from what you've heard about closures of LIRs, terminations of membership. I think for us as the management of the RIPE NCC, we need to stop and think about that. What we need to think about particularly is how we communicate back to this community and answer those concerns and those questions and rebuild the trust that you have in the RIPE NCC. I don't think my position is going to be terribly different from what I said on stage here. I think we do obviously have a need to respect the confidentiality of specific members, and we're not going to be able to discuss the cases specifically in a broader public context. But that doesn't mean we can't find a way to bring the concerns that we have, or that you have, bring answers to those concerns to a more public venue. I think I think the speaker over here earlier said it seems like there's more pressure coming from the RIPE NCC on the membership. I think it does raise an interesting point, and I think what I would agree is there is more pressure. And I think that pressure comes not just from the fact that we have a greater number of members and we're trying to deal with the administration that goes along with that, but really more significantly that we are seeing pressure from the fact that now there is an incentive for people to come and perhaps be less than honest with the RIPE NCC, and in many cases, or some cases, quite criminal in sort of trying to defraud the RIPE NCC. This is the kind of thing that we have pressure also from the community and from our membership to say the RIPE NCC needs to make sure it's dealing with these cases and is actually able to respond and make sure that fraud is not part of the administration that we do. So in that case, it means that maybe sometimes members who have not done anything wrong or are working within the policy get some closer scrutiny, and that's the role of the RIPE NCC, to provide that scrutiny. But we also need to do it in a way, we realise, that builds the confidence of our members in our ability to do this work and to do this scrutiny, rather than raising concerns that you don't know what you need to provide to the RIPE NCC to make sure that you continue to have membership. So I think I'll sort of stop there and say, just from a RIPE NCC management perspective, going back to Amsterdam, having heard what was said here, we definitely do see an action item there to work on our communication strategy, to make sure we communicate what it is that members and LIR account holders need to do and need to discuss and bring to the RIPE NCC to feel confident. So, okay, I see a couple of people here, and I'm going to put this on.
Здравствуйте еще.
Hello, once again. I asked questions, and colleagues in the room had additional questions following my questions, and maybe I should rephrase those questions. It's just that I need to make sure that you understand them and that you pass them on to RIPE NCC management. I even wrote it down. So my name is Ilya. We are an IP broker. We are professionals of the market, and we service both end users and LIRs. They contact us for our expertise. And recently, I learned a lot about what is happening to Russian LIRs and end users. And like I said, in the last year, RIPE NCC terminated relations that affected several thousands, hundreds of thousands of Russian IPv4 addresses in total, not 100, not 300, hundreds of thousands of IPv4 addresses. Compared to other countries in terms of LIRs, maybe it's not an impressive number, but in total numbers, in total figures, Russia is a leader and it's a fact, and you should take it very seriously. So my two questions. Deregistration of an LIR. What is it? What does it mean? Does it mean that the LIR will lose the business? Does it mean that the customers renting PA and PI networks will suffer? I understand that it involves the legal department of RIPE NCC, registry department of RIPE NCC, but all the cases with which I am familiar, I know that some of them are recent, some of them were discussed in autumn during the last RIPE meeting. All of them, every single case that I'm familiar with, all these addresses were used in Russia without any evil intent. As a result, the clients moved their resources to new registries, but there was no effect at all, apart from those LIRs losing their business. So what is your aim? What is the objective of RIPE NCC? Are your methods correct? If you want to answer now, please do so if it is a short answer, or I will move to the second question. There is a second question as well. I can answer your question. Because if my colleagues can't, I will answer your question.
I don't think here today I'm going to be able to answer specifically your questions, and I think one really important thing to note is that each case is handled differently. Not in terms of we would apply different processes or different sort of levels of impartiality, but because each situation is different and we have to look at the situation as it stands. The goal of the RIPE NCC is to ensure that there is honesty and there is compliance there with RIPE policies and with RIPE NCC procedures. That's purely our goal. I think we talked a little bit earlier about how there is no incentive other than that for RIPE NCC to terminate a membership or to deregister resources. This is not something we're doing for any benefit to the organization, but it is something that we have the trust of the membership more broadly that we need to enforce the rules and the policies that community has made for the RIPE NCC to follow. I would certainly be really interested to see your numbers, and I think we spoke a little earlier as well about Russia's representation in the number of members closed or resources deregistered. My understanding is that Russian members closed is not a sort of majority or an especially large percentage of the closures that we've done over time. There may be issues affecting that, possibly if a member has multiple LARs, and that may be more common, but I'm not sure. So it would be really interesting, I think, to talk more about the numbers you have. But again, this is where being able to speak with you here today and in an ongoing way is important.
Да, спасибо. Речь была об абсолютно.
And I'm talking about absolute numbers. In absolute numbers, Russia is the leader. Okay, my second question is, we're all human and we all make mistakes. Ordinary people who work at RIPE NCC also make mistakes. There can be mistakes related to personal data, delays, delays in checking the documents, and delays in providing answers. I understand all of that. But you have to admit that mistakes are made by some employees at RIPE NCC, and this results in certain problems. At the same time, at LIR, also ordinary people work. And at LIRs, ordinary people make mistakes. Under current rules, and actually these rules changed only a couple of months ago, and the current rules say that the very first error in the documents that was committed by an ordinary employee of an LIR will result in a termination of the contract. However, an ordinary mistake by an ordinary employee of RIPE NCC doesn't result in any consequences. But this termination for an LIR, it means losing business, losing reputation, financial losses, and all of this happens without a warning. I will give you one example. There is this big LIR, and I have to apologize to people, Rostelecom, the biggest LIR, 1/5 of addresses belong to, 10 million of addresses belong to LIR. Under the current revision of the rules, Rostelecom bomb, whatever, not Rostelecom, Company A. If this company, I don't know, decides to make a joke or is drunk or whatever and sends a photoshopped passport to RIPE NCC, RIPE NCC will withdraw the status of LIR from this company, and it will revoke the addresses. So my question is this fair? Can it be done somehow differently? Because the proposals, the members cannot make proposals on the terms and conditions of termination. Only the board can do that. But under the current rules, the very first mistake in the sent documents result in the termination, or there is another item as well. There is another item as well of leading into deception or deceiving, something like this, which also results in termination. I want to ask Ekaterina now. Ekaterina works in our department that deals with all these issues that you have just brought up. I ask you not to deceive the audience, okay? Let's hear Ekaterina. I don't know what you mean when you say error or Photoshop, and it's bad practice to send a photoshopped passport or ID just for fun. Hi, I work in customer services. In the Amsterdam office of RIPE NCC, you raise very interesting questions, and as Maxime has said, don't take me wrong, and please do not exaggerates. I work with dozens of requests per day, and I show you that it will take us much longer than overnight to terminate relations with our members. It requires a long procedure, and before we deregister, before we close a member, the process, the process sometimes can be even too long, and we will do everything and more than that to save the LIR and to contact the official representatives of this LIR. Sometimes it's very difficult to find those official representatives, by the way. Deception, this is a nasty word. Ekaterina, your words today are not confirmed. It's like you versus my colleague, and transparency for the operation and the well-being of your organization is extremely important. I want to give my comments and ask a question as a follow-up to your question. I can't speak in English, but I will speak in Russian in any case, and I will rely on the capability of the translator to deliver my message. I've known RIPE NCC for ages, and for more than 10 years, I've been a member of the RIPE community. When I came to the RIPE meeting for the first time, I met Rob Bloxile, the first chair of RIPE, and at that time, the chair of the board of directors was Nigel Tilley, and I was a young guy from Russia, and I was very curious, and I walk around and ask them, in the Russian business practice, for instance, when you enter into contractual relations, you request a lot of documents from your potential counterpart to verify those documents first and then sign a contract. But at RIPE NCC, you do not check anything. You only ask for a copy of a registry entry. You don't even ask this copy to be certified by a notary public. Wait, Ekaterina. So they were listening to me, and they told me, you see, in Holland, we don't have this practice. We trust our partners. We believe what they say. And besides, our function, like RIPE NCC, RIPE community, we are not policemen. And what we do is enough for us to perform our functions. I want you to understand, and the management of RIPE NCC to understand, that RIPE NCC is not police. What I've been hearing around today about the cases, I don't know much about those cases, but it seems to me that you request LIR to be the policeman, to check the documents. And all these, replies that you give to the mailing list about privacy, they are rather, superficial. RIPE NCC is the biggest operators association of Russia. Most of the operators or other companies associated with the internet, they belong to this association. There are other associations as well, like the Union of Operators of the Internet. It's an imitation association. It doesn't represent the interests of its membership. It's a very weird structure. But before the events of last year, you set the example. You showed everybody how an operators association in Russia should behave in terms of transparency, in terms of everything else. But now you are somewhere on the level of the Russian government in terms of how you talk to the community, in terms of non-committal replies, non-substantial replies that you are sending. I'm speaking Russian, but again, I hope that in a couple of months I will be able to say the same in English at a different meeting, and I will be able to come up with additional arguments supporting this point of view. Another thing, non-involvement in politics. There are organizations that provide stewardship to the internet, and they claim not to be involved in local politics. And Chris is nodding. He says that, yeah, it's true. So this is one way to build and lose trust. Yesterday here, in this very room, the Russian Internet Governance Forum took place. This conference was similar to the one now, but it was not a classical Internet Governance Forum. It was a pro-government event with a pro-government agenda, and it was supported by RIPE NCC. So never tell me again that you are not involved in politics. Yesterday, you supported the official politics of the Russian Federation, and this does not earn you the trust of your members from Russia. This is one way to undermine trust to you. It's not just the cases with the LIRs, and I hope you take that into account. Hi, my name is Yuri Bogdanov. I'm from IP4 Market. I subscribe to everything that's just been said about RIPE NCC and to RIPE NCC. Speaking from personal experience, since we actively cooperate with your organization, we also consult many companies who then contact you. I have to say that it's absolutely unacceptable, this whole structure that today RIPE NCC is building towards the members, the participants of your organization. RIPE NCC exists for the membership, for the LIRs. It's not LIRs for the RIPE NCC. In the last year, many changes took place in terms of how RIPE NCC operates. The requirements have become tougher. The companies are now punished for the things that happened often by accident, not intentionally. I'm not familiar with the cases to which other people here referred, but all LIRs who support objects, they are very concerned with the RIPE's behavior, and they all find this behavior unacceptable. If you find mistakes in the documents, you should give people a chance to fix those mistakes. But you should do it in a way that doesn't inflict damages upon those companies. I have a quick comment to what's been said right now about how much tougher we've become and all of that. There are contractual relationships between us and the members. It's not about who exists for the sake of whom. We are talking about legally binding documents that two parties sign. And this document must be respected. We respect our commitments, our obligations towards the membership. And we also ask the membership to respect this contract as well. You are saying that in the last year, it's become harder. It's not a clamp down, you know. It's not like we are trying. Well, perhaps in the past we were too relaxed, and now we want to return to this. You know, we want to give the due respect to those contractual obligations. Like Ekaterina said, our actions in every particular case must be substantiated. In order for them to be grounded, we use internal processes. It's a standard operating procedure for all cases. No exceptions are made. I understand that we are here in Russia discussing the Russian experience, but in our region we've got 74 countries, and for all LIRs in all 74 countries, the rules are the same. And when colleagues are saying that every case is tried or investigated on a case-by-case basis, it is true. Every case is unique, and in every case we are doing our best and we are doing the utmost to help the good actors, those who are acting in goodwill, good faith. And if we see that the organization is shamelessly breaching the rules, then of course we will have to act in accordance and proportionately to those violations. What about violations on the part of RIPE NCC? When you are with this last regulation of providing the services, you breach your own norms. That is to say, RIPE now has the right to terminate a member at any time, not only for a repeated violation, but this is a recent change. The community said that initially that the document was reworked and updated and no major changes are included into the document, but in fact the changes were major, and very often RIPE NCC does, clamp down on the members without discussing that tougher line with the membership. And also RIPE NCC recently has been working with the documents, but interpreting them, with a bias towards RIPE NCC and with a prejudice against the members. It's not like we refuse to supply correct and valid and accurate documents. It's just that not all members have the same competence in your bureaucratic procedures. there aren't many companies out there in the market who have enough experience to understand those procedures. And I ask you not to terminate customers on day one. If there are mistakes in the databases, they must be fixed together. And if the mistakes are committed by RIPE employees, and actually RIPE employees make more mistakes than we do in our communication with RIPE, and very often we have to prove that it was a mistake on the part of the RIPE employee, not someone on our side.
Все-таки еще один момент, что если...
Why do you always blame LIR if you received falsified documents? Why don't you go to the police? Why don't you go to the law enforcement authorities? Like counterfeiting documents, I mean, it's a criminal offense, or at least an administrative offense in every country. So maybe you should engage the services of the police and not try to push the blame immediately to the LIR. Maybe it was not the LIR's fault, it was the end user's fault.
To the end of the day, and I think we are hearing a lot of the same concerns that we heard. I think really the speaker before raised precisely the point that I wanted to make, which is that we are hearing people who don't necessarily haven't been the subject of these, having concern about what they're hearing, the half stories or the stories from one side that they're hearing. And that's absolutely something for the NCC management to take account of, in that we need to think about how we're communicating this. But I really, and I think as a broker, but I mean, I think anyone sort of recognizes the accuracy and the freedom from dishonesty of the registry is more important now than ever. We absolutely need to make sure, and the RIPE NCC understands its role as vital in making sure that that registry is accurate. Now, we have made changes to the closure document which said that removed a word repeatedly. That wasn't to say a mistake made will mean the RIPE NCC closes a member or deregisters resources. We've committed, and we're absolutely committed in an ongoing way, to work with members, work with LIRs if there are mistakes made. In the same way, if RIPE NCC staff make any mistakes, those mistakes are not going to result in a major event like a closure. There are steps, there are processes, there are iterations that ensure that those kinds of drastic actions are not taken without due process and diligence and looking again at the facts of the case. But that said, we can't, as a responsible organization, we cannot allow to say that someone must be able to come repeatedly with fraudulent documents, clearly, intentionally fraudulently. I'm not talking about mistakes here. I'm not sure about the idea of someone drunkenly sending a fake passport through, but that seems to me like criminal activity. Certainly from the RIPE NCC, we would have to regard that as criminal activity. A fraudulent document is a fraudulent document. And we're not talking about mistakes made here, we're talking about intent to be dishonest with the RIPE NCC. This is why the change was made to that document, to say this is not something that someone can repeatedly come and get a warning and say, oh no, you can't fake documents, and then come back again. That's our responsibility as the Regional Internet Registry here. It's our responsibility at a time when the accuracy and the faith in the registry needs to be higher than ever. There is an operational need for people in your business, for people in all network operators, to have confidence in the registry and confidence that the RIPE NCC has done everything in its power to make sure that the people who and the organisations responsible for resources have done the right thing and are legitimate holders of those resources. I see a lot of people lining up. I think we certainly do have a time limit here, and I know we're not going to be able to go into all of the details and all of the specifics that people might want to. We do have some time to talk about it afterwards, and we are going to have to look at how our communication happens in two directions, both from us to the community and listening back to the community. But yeah, that's
Да, у нас остается совсем мало времени. Единственное, что я попросил сейчас уточнить.
Yes, we have very little time left. It's just that about a month ago, we prepared a report on the number of closures. or on the number of LIRs who went through the termination process. And it turned out, I asked my colleague, it turned out that in 2017, 2018, 15 closures took place, and 4 of them are Russian LIRs. So I can't, a point of clarification, Alexander, please. There is one other question that we will take. We have like 5 minutes left. Alexander, no. So statistics, we have statistics. So once again, actually, I wanted to speak in defense of RIPE NCC. An LIR and its customer, they too have a contractual relationship, and this contract is governed by the Russian law. And if this is a telecom services contract, then in the terms and conditions, there is a whole list of requirements imposed upon the client. If you can't produce a passport, you will not be serviced by a telecom company. You can't get telecom services. If it's not telecom services but LIR services, you are distributing addresses, it is still a contract. Aren't you checking your counterparties? So in a particular case, RIPE NCC asks you to ensure the validity of your counterparties. When you buy an apartment, will you trust people? Will you take them by their word? Like, will you refuse to see the documents? I think that in every context, the request to check the documents, to produce the documents, it's valid in any jurisdiction in every context. Colleagues, sorry, we must stop this. When you sign a contract, you do not run any checks? Why don't you transfer this case to the police? Why don't you disclose that to the police? Why not? I just wanted to ask whether in the room we have anybody from those LIRs who were closed. Any closed LIRs? Can you make your case public? Can you make your case public? Do you know why your status was terminated? Yes, please go ahead. Here's the microphone. Maxim Atroshenko, Mobile Element. The company was closed, and that's why our LIR status was revoked. First, the company was closed, then the status was terminated. Excellent. Well, no, we didn't get it back. We're in the process. Who should get it? There is a successor. One business was closed, and the new company was registered instead of the old company. And we are in the process of re-registering. I do not see your problems, the problems that you talked about. No other LIRs, which shows that people have something to hide. Well, I don't think that that's what it shows. I think actually that it's something quite different. I'm sorry, we need to close this session and to go outside and drink champagne. I'm sure you still have a lot of questions. I suggest that you put them to RIPE over a glass of champagne. Uncertainty is what scares us the most. We don't know what happened. We don't know why it happened. And we can't ask colleagues, not because we can't find them, but like very often we can't trust this information, you know? How can we, it's like if there was some kind of, I don't know, sanitized information, maybe make it public, make those cases public, explain, tell people that we will not give you the names, it was some European LIR, and this is what happened, you know, the gist of the case, without names. Well, you have the list of our requirements, of things to do. This is the contract. That's what you are to do. This contract is translated into Russian. By the way, Russian is the only language into which our contract is translated. We translated the contract into Russian for Russia. So please comply with the contract. This is what I'm asking you to do. These are, the terms to which you subscribed. Not to do. The not to do's. We do not make the not to do's public, not to let know the potential fraudsters how to breach the rules and how to bypass the obligations. So if we find fraud, then we do it on purpose. We don't want to advertise those techniques, those...
To end the discussion on here, what you've said here, I think, is exactly what we're taking away. We're not going to be able to tell you the details of the cases, but we need to find better ways to communicate and to ensure that the members who are doing the right thing have the confidence that the RIPE NCC is also doing the right thing. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Вот это да. Тогда
Wow, excellent. Okay, then let's summarize. Today in the room we had 292 people from 13 countries, an excellent result for us. This was a kind of a pilot event, and it would be very important for us to get your feedback about the format of the event and about the presentations that were delivered during the day. Anthony is going to, do magic, perhaps. There was another question that I kept hearing during the day. All presentations will be made available at ripe.net. All presentations will be downloadable, and you'll have access to them very soon. So once again, 298 attendees. But since we made this slide, four more people appeared. I want to thank the Coordination Center for .ru.rf, Andrei. Thank you very much. Can I say something very quickly? A quick comment. I am sitting together with Misha at the back of the room, and we've been watching this dialogue, this heated discussion, and we understand that very similar things were happening in the domain industry. Not a long time ago, you see, when the contracts are not complied with, when the laws are breached, people tend to refer to politically. I mean, they try to push the blame to some politics. So I think that the only way out of this is be open and transparent and provide as much information as you can. I want to thank Ilya, because today he tried not only to protect the interests of the operators, but he's also the chairman of the Committee of Registrars, and he is also an advocate of the registrars at the Coordination Center for TLT.ru. But registrars is just one party to this dialogue. We need to hear all stakeholders. So this is a great event, and RIPE has a great future in Russia with those events. This is an excellent outreach exercise, and we'll stay your partners. Thank you. But there is another host. We've been partners for ages. MSK-IX, Alexei Kostin stayed with us. Alexei? Hello, everyone. Indeed, it has been 15 years that MSK-IX has been supporting various social initiatives of RIPE NCC. On behalf of our company, I want to thank the whole team of RIPE NCC for being a great friend and a great partner in those events. Thank you, everyone. Excellent. We also wanted to thank the sponsor of our coffee breaks, Eurasia Peering. And like I said, this is a new format for us. We would really love to understand how much you loved it or hated it. So you can follow this link, and if you do, you will fill out very quickly. It will take no time. You will fill out a quick questionnaire that will help us no end. And it will be available for how long? 15 minutes only, of course. In 15 minutes, it will disappear from the internet forever. We'll delete it. Okay, all archives, all presentations will be available here at this link, and the presentations will stay there for longer than 15 minutes. And I hope that some of these presentations, I mean, you will put them to use. Maybe you will be able to share the presentations with your colleagues who couldn't make it to this event. There have been already several people who asked me during the day when the country report presentation will be made available, because they wanted to send this presentation to other people. So once again, we hope that it was useful for everyone. It was productive, and right outside of these doors, there is a farewell drink waiting for all of us.